guys, welcome back. Today we are actually decorating Leni Blumstein's room. I've already played this rotation, but I felt really bad because the random occurrence scenario that this household got was for Gallagher Blumstein, aka Gallagher Newson, to kind of kick the bucket. So I decided I was going to give her a whole townhouse as just like reparation for the trauma. Not sure how it's going to work out, but today we're just going to be decorating her bedroom. I actually really like Leni Blumstein. She's got a really cool face. Like, she is related to Meadow Thayer, possibly another townie, but there's definitely some Meadow in there that you can see very clearly. And it made her interesting because she's technically a Blumenthal, but Arch Blumenthal, the king, and her brother basically gave her her own dukedom, and her surname was changed to kind of show that separation. And yes, the dukedom is in Leni's name. It was not in Gallagher's name. So she is a duchess, but like a duke? I don't know. So yeah, this is going to be her space. She's a really interesting sim too. Like, all she really cared about in life was fencing and hanging out with her semi-alcoholic husband. And yeah, again, I feel a little bit bad. There was actually a cool glitch though where it made like, well, not cool, I was annoyed with it at the time, but it made for an interesting story where basically her hair, it defaulted to like the really short Cersei Beaker hair. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get her regular hair to stick. It would in like her sleepwear, but yeah. So I was irritated, but I decided to make it like, you know, she was so upset and grieving so badly that she just cut off all her hair. And I kind of like that. And I'm going to change her hair before I play her again. It's her normal hair right now as soon as she had a baby, obviously. But I will change it back to, or not change it back, I'm going to change it to something that's like shoulder length. But yeah, so that was fun. And I 100% named her child Gallivant after the show Gallivant, and I regret nothing. I was going to name it Gallagher, and then I'm like, that's boring. I was like, what if I just call this kid Gallivant? And there was no one to stop me, so. I did struggle with her room quite a bit though, because again, all she really cared about was fencing and her husband, and I took one of those things away. She didn't have any vices, she's not really religious, she's not really like, I mean, she's kind of feminine, but she's not like the type of sim that I would see like sitting in her vanity with all of her makeup, or just a lot of things that I normally do to fill up space, like filling it up with plants or like cool books or things like that, like just really didn't suit her. So I was struggling. And her design style was forest. Her actual favorite color is gray, but I end up using a lot of white tones just because a lot of things are white in color. So yeah, I didn't really know what to do. I gave her way too big of a room for not knowing what to do as well, so that was problematic. But I was like, I'll figure it out. I've got gumption, I can do it. And yeah, I did figure it out, but I greatly resent that I did this to myself. I do like how it turned out though. It's pretty dang cute. I'm excited to do the nursery as well, because since this townhouse won't be, you know, Gallagher never lived here, so I don't have to use any of his design inspirations, but like my idea was her brother Arndt actually decorated this whole space for her, because originally she was living basically in this apartment block that is attached to the castle, like using the lot adjuster. Well, the apartments are totally bugged, and her apartment also was only a one bedroom because I didn't plan on them having kids so soon, but when I found out Gallagher was gonna die, I was like, okay, we need to move forward, you know. So I kind of pushed her to have a kid, which is fine, but you know, yeah. Gallagher just has a really cool face. I have a soft spot for all of the Newsons. I think they just have such cool facial features, and when you combine it with Leni, who, you know, she's got a bit of Meadow there in there, but she's also got a lot of the Blumenthal kind of features, which are very strong and very craggy, depending on the sim. She didn't really get the cragginess, but yeah, they're recognizable is the word we're gonna go with. I love them, but I couldn't wait to see kind of what their kid was gonna look like, and of course I was like, well, now I'm sad, they're not gonna have one, and then I said, actually, yes, they are, so, yeah. Anyways, that's why I needed to build her a townhouse, because there was nowhere for Gallivant to go, and he needed to go somewhere. She also adopted a cat last round, because she wanted to, and I was like, I'm always going to indulge this want, so she has Babs the cat as well. So yeah, this is me mostly just looking at her space and looking at the forest folder and going, okay, what can I put in there? Which, as a side note, my folders are not finished. I stopped basically at surfaces. I tend to go back and finish them, but like, it's such a struggle for me because it's not fun. It's very, very tedious, and some of my design style like categories are very similar, and so then I have to stare at a desk for 20 minutes and be like, so this is New Orleans, but is this also going to be Victorian? Is it going to be Edwardian? And I mentioned it before, like, I do use those terms, but this is a fantasy setting. Like, it's my interpretation. It's just to help me remember, because again, I've said this before, but I used to use terms like, oh, this is the Cold Coast style, and this is the Plains style, and then I wouldn't remember what that was supposed to mean. So those words are to help me, not necessarily to denote what they are. But forest, you know, obviously some of the terms have stuck, and it was the ones that I remembered the most, like forest, which is lots of carved wood, intricate details, that kind of thing. And so I kind of knew where to go, but again, like, I'm just plunking things down. I didn't really want to give her a vanity, but I figured it was something that Arndt would actually put, because then I was also thinking through the lens of her brother, who's very worried about her, wants her to be comfortable, wants her to be happy, things that he would put in her space. And, you know, after she chopped off all her hair, she's not a very vain character, but I could see that that would really bother her, because then it would remind her of what she did and what she went through and all that. So I think putting the vanity is like a reminder to look at herself and like herself. And that's something that he would do. Like, he's kind of a jerk sim, but he really has a soft spot for Leni. Like, she's his favorite sister. Part of the reason why he did rebel is he just kept thinking that, you know, once she became a teenager, she was going to be pushed into a marriage that she had no say in, because they were indentured. And yeah, he wanted to be king, but like, that was a contributing factor. And so he was really happy that she, you know, found Gallagher, was starting off in this wonderful life, and now, well, things happened. So yeah, I figured I'd give her kind of a sitting area type situation. I put the dresser in. I figured there would also be a bathtub somewhere. She normally, I don't see her as the type of sim that like would spend a lot of time in her bedroom. It's just due to the circumstances she probably is. So I was just trying to reflect, I guess, the grieving process and like her exploration of things that she maybe didn't typically enjoy, but is just trying to keep busy. At one point I had knitting things in here. Like, I was trying to show that she's maybe not herself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, everybody grieves, and in different ways, and I think that was her way, is kind of, all right, maybe I can do this, maybe I can do that, who knows. Okay, so there was a brief break there. I hope it wasn't too noticeable, but I realized I hadn't sped up the videos. Yeah, so there's a few things have been placed since a second ago. You know, I added a bookshelf. Again, she's not a reader, but maybe she's trying to distract herself. You know, it's just because you're not a reader doesn't mean you don't have any books. I put that little vocational thing as well, just as like, maybe somebody tried, because I always think of that as like pulpits or possibly a religious item. It doesn't have to be used for that purpose, but like, maybe somebody gave her a religious book and she's just like, hey, I'll think about it. She's also probably gonna have a bird, because while I don't see her as like being super into hunting, it's good companionship in addition to having, you know, the cat. At this point I was thinking maybe she got a little bit into like a specific type of gardening, namely like lots of vines and things. But this is just me trying to feel out like what the heck I'm gonna do with this space. I have a tiara on a pillow. Like, I just didn't really know how to decorate it. because I didn't want to put, I know before I put a whole bunch of barrels in somebody's room, but I stand by that decision. But for Leni, her hobby is fencing, and there's really only one fencing object, and I had that downstairs already, so I didn't want to have that in the room as well. But I also, a lot of my sword deco is like swords on the ground, and I also just, she wouldn't put her sword on the ground, and I also don't think that she would have a whole bunch of swords in her bedroom necessarily. I find kind of a middle ground with that idea, but yeah, I was hesitant to put a whole bunch of swords in her room because it just didn't seem like it fit her. Because Leni's a very young sim. She's a young adult, but she's very young. She was, when Arndt was like late teens, young adultish, she was a toddler. Like, she was a lot younger than him. She is a lot younger than him. So she's very young. She hasn't really figured herself out yet, which, you know, it's going to be fun for me for gameplay sometimes, but not great when I'm trying to decorate her room and I don't know what to do with it. I did have her traits to go on. I can't think off the top of my head, but nothing was really like decorating worthy. The only one she kind of had was Traveler, but I also don't think that she's traveled much, so she's not going to have a bunch of these like artifacts from other places because she hasn't had the chance to do that. So maybe in time she'll have, you know, a lot of different things, but for now I didn't want to put too much. So I was just fiddling with like bottles and things, not necessarily as like makeup items, but I was more actually thinking of them as medicine because she is super depressed right now. So I feel like people would be giving her different tonics and potions and things like that to just kind of help her feel better. Because magic is a thing now, but like in this world, I maintain that magic does not magically erase how you feel about things. So it'd be, I'm sure Leni would appreciate it if it could, but yeah. You can see I am placing some like daggers and swords and things down just in case, because I'm like, well, you know what, if all else fails, I will just start putting weapons everywhere. But it was a last resort. Again, I like the idea of her getting into reading, not necessarily because she wants to, but just more as a distraction. I also like the idea of her being a tiny bit of a foodie, like not super into it, but just like a little bit. I'm a little bummed that I left their apartment and I didn't take anything because I really did like their apartment, but I felt like a clean slate was the best thing for her. Plus that apartment lot's buggy and half the time I try to open it and it crashes, so I was not going to risk it. But yeah, my good old chuck everything onto the floor and then slowly condense method. I really do stand by this method. I know it seems probably tedious to some people who decorate, but there's people that just, they know where everything is and they know immediately what they're going to use, and that's fantastic. I'm not one of them. I am chaotic, so it was just, this is what works for me. And again, you grab like general items too, like the bag of coins, the bucket, piece of paper. Even though she's into fencing, I'm like, well, maybe she has a bow, because that's an acceptable kind of pastime is going hunting, so maybe that's something that she does. I do get rid of it though, because I feel like right now she's kind of being a homebody, which again, totally fine. That's how she wants to grieve, we're gonna let her do it, but yeah. I also wanted like a tea set kind of thing, because I feel like people are kind of not indulging her, but really babying her, because she was already babied before and she kind of hated it, but now she's at a point where she's not going to really argue because she just doesn't care. And in a way it's good, because there are people around her constantly that are like, well, you might not care right now, but we do care about you and we're going to show it while you are allowing us to do it, because we all know you're going to go back eventually to being the independent little bean you are. But it's interesting because if you don't read Tumblr, her husband, the way that I excused his death, because it was supposed to be vampirism, and I'm like, well, how would that make sense? Well, Royson, why can't I think of her last name right now? Blumenthal, duh. she recently got kidnapped due to a random occurrence scenario as well, and so she's a member of the nobility. Like, people would freak out. So my idea was Gallagher, was off helping trying to find her and then helping trying to find the people responsible, but he's also one of those people that just can't leave something well enough alone, so he started poking at the border between Tenby and Adiran, which is the magical forest, and it didn't like that very much, and it turned him into a vampire, and he immediately died because it was daytime. That's what I went with. But with that storyline, that means that she's probably not gonna like Royson very much at all. Also, thank you to the lovely commenter who did mention that I don't pronounce Royson how it's pronounced in real, regular, modern day life. And that's because I can't pronounce anything at all. I'm terrible at it. So while I use real life names just for the sake of ease, I don't always pronounce them the way that they're going to be pronounced. And I absolutely handwave it with fantasy nonsense, and I admit it. Although Leni could probably be pronounced a lot of different ways, but I think I'm actually pronouncing that one right, maybe. It's Leni. Leni? Leni? I don't know, I always pronounce it Leni. See, I'm like chucking all the Skyrim swords and things down, because I'm like, I might have to go with swords, because I had a lot of items down, but I just didn't feel like a lot of them were right and were going to survive my initial cuts. So I felt, better safe than sorry. Let's just throw a lot of weapons down. I was going to say fun fact, but it's actually kind of a sad fact. I was watching Casual Criminalist, as I normally do when I record these, and it was the John Benet Ramsey case, and it never fails to make me just so sad. Because I was a little kid when that came out, and I remember I was just fascinated. Like a little, because I think it was 7 or maybe 8, like I was very close to her age, and I was a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. And I don't know why, I was just obsessed. I wanted to buy all of the tabloids, and like, people were like, that's fine, here you go. We'll buy them for you. And I'm like, in retrospect, maybe you shouldn't have. But yeah, I just remember at the time I was obsessed, and then like as I got older, of course, it's so heartbreaking, and just having, watching somebody go over it again with no familiarity with it, it was kind of weird. Then again, the whole true crime thing, like a lot of people, they're like, why are you interested in that? I'm like, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like, I don't think that I'm going to be one of those people who's going to solve things. Like, no. The whole armchair detective thing, which, to their credit, there have been people that have solved things, but I don't know, it's just more human behavior. I'm thinking about it only because I literally just decorated this. I had a hard time with curtains for this room, because the ones I wanted to use didn't come. There were those yellow ones, and I really wanted to use them, and I was like, not the ones I'm putting up, but different yellow ones. And yeah, I wanted to use them, and it didn't work. I wanted to use these red ones, but then the double windows didn't really work there. So I just ended up using some like sheer gauzy looking ones. Leni's actually pretty lucky, because she's not in one of the center parts of this new townhouse style that I've got going on. She's got one on the end, so she's got more windows than ordinarily they would get. I am going to leave the old apartment lot where it's located, just because those apartments, as well as the portion of the castle where the royals live, it's like a different size, because I wasn't paying attention. So these are actually shorter, but I kind of like that, because the idea of the whole Blumstein, oh my goodness, Blumenthal castle complex is, it's like remnants of older castles. They tore down everything that was related to the Kentons, but there was other things that were there that they used, repurposed. So I don't mind them kind of looking a little different, because they probably had to do some repairs, and maybe these ones were narrower for some reason. So I know I keep saying I'm going to fix my microphone situation, because it's still pretty echoey. I swear I am. I'm still unpacking, and it's a lot. So, because I'm unpacking, but I'm also completely decorating. my next big task is actually my loft and my partner's office, which I'm so excited about what I've decided to do for both space. I mean, my loft is kind of done, it's just not decorated, but I'm finally getting around to framing a lot of my Wheel of Time prints, so those are gonna go up. And all my dice are gonna go up, and then my partner's office, because, so there's like a teal chaise couch thing that's in there that can double as a bed. And he decided that he was going to get a fun office chair, and he got an orange one without thinking about it, and now it's very Miami Dolphins in there, which we can't do because he's from Pittsburgh and my dad is also from Pittsburgh, and nope, I'm not getting in the argument. So I've decided to go like full Meow Wolf in there. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be weird. I know I keep telling you guys about decorating my house and not showing you, but as I've mentioned, you know, I'm a little cautious. Who knows though? I might show you some of it. It's just me talking while I grab stuff. I also wanted to kind of grab expensive things because, again, she's one of the preeminent nobles in the land kind of thing, so she would have some expensive stuff. And here's where I got really happy because I forgot I had these hanging wall swords, and I was like, okay, I don't want a ton of swords in her room, but like these look like they're hanging up. They look like fencing swords. Realistically, I mean, they're not perfect. I don't think they're fencing swords, but they're close enough. Realistically speaking, I could have a couple hanging and it's not super weird. And then downstairs, she's gonna have a bunch of swords, because even though it's fencing, like, it's more sword fighting, I see it. I should probably just change that to sword fighting. I don't know why I put it as fencing. So yeah, we are gonna do a cut in a minute where I basically jumped to the finished product because this was getting really long. This took me 45 minutes, which doesn't seem like a long time until you realize I literally was just decorating one room, and then it's a lot. I was debating changing the rug. I was not happy with rug placement in this room because it's just kind of off. I didn't want it under the tub. It needed to kind of be under the couch, but like, yeah, I just wasn't happy. Like that cream rug, I was a lot happier with, but I wanted it under the couch. So yeah, I finally just went, nah, fine. So yeah, we're gonna do the little walkthrough really quick. You can see we've got like the tub area, the little kind of reading-ish nook. These are kind of medicines, I say, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like, and I'll see you in the next one.